is you talked a little bit about the monetary effect of Trump on some of those Mexico shipments as far as the border adjustment tax and potentially what some of that looks like. Can you just kind of maybe go a little bit more in depth into some of that?
Help me understand the question again.
Yeah, so the question is just, can you please repeat the monetary effect of Trump on Mexico shipments? I think where they're trying to talk about is, you talked about the border adjustment tax there for a little bit, but can you go into some more detail on
Right.
On the tax itself? As far as potentially subsidizing exports is the wrong word, but maybe that is the right word, as far as what that looks like. Which then, when other countries subsidize exports, the U.S. puts the countervailing duties on those things. So it's kind of to me, that piece of the border adjustment tax seems kind of like a double-edged sword. Is you have state subsidized industries that the U.S. then puts in a countervailing duty to level the playing field with U.S. industries, and then we're going to turn around and subsidize, like I said, may not be the right word, but then do something.
Yeah. So, I mean, you really shouldn't look at the border adjustment tax as any kind of a duty or anything. It's across the board on every import, and it's not targeted at Mexico. It's, every country, every import. And now, earlier this year, Trump and some of his staff kind of conflated, when he was getting a lot of pushback. He was talking, taking a heavy-handed approach in his talk and messaging about Mexico and the border wall and NAFTA, and saying there wasn't going to be any trade negotiations without a border wall, and U.S. imports. Mexico would pay for the border wall, and one way they would do that is we would put some import tariffs on it to pay. And so when that was all going down and he got a lot of negative feedback, he started talking about, slipping in language about this tax in Congress, and talking about a 20% tax, and the 20% tax was a reference to the border adjustment tax, but really they were two separate things, because he's never talked about a border adjustment tax, but he kind of conflated the two and confused them. But in reality, like I said, there's no connection. So the way it basically works is that it basically gives exports a free pass, and imports would get taxed at the 20% corporate tax rate, and I'm guessing at wholesale prices or whatever, but you wouldn't be able to back out any expenses related to that import that related to your any part of the overseas transactions. So the purchase overseas, the transportation. I mean, I guess the domestic transportation from maybe your DC to your store, you could deduct that expense because that's domestic input. But one of the claims by the proponents or the authors of the legislation, proposed legislation, or it's not even legislation, the authors of the proposal, is that other countries have value-added taxes, and so that puts us at a disadvantage because they have value-added taxes, and when our imports come in, those value-added taxes get applied to imports. But most experts don't think that's a fair comparison, because the value-added tax is an indirect sales tax, and it applies across the board and doesn't apply to where the destination is or the origin. So
it doesn't discriminate.
Yeah, exactly. So right, and it doesn't favor exports over imports and so forth. So I guess those would be my comments on that question.